Welcome to this session of energy conservation and management. We are going through the module 1, that is energy resources, finite and renewable sources. Today's lecture is about energy scenario. Learning outcome. In this session, it is to study about the energy scenario. After learning this, students will understand the present condition of energy uses. First of all, global primary energy reserve. First of all, coal. It is an well-known source of energy, as we know, and maximum of country, whether it is developing country, whether it is developed country, still now using a large amount of coal as energy for generation of electricity or either by various industrial processes. Coal, the proven global coal reserves was estimated to be 984,453 million tons by the end of 2003. The USA had the largest share of the global reserve, that is nearly about 25%, followed by Russia nearly 16%, and China nearly 11.6%, and India is fourth, about 8.6% of the total coal reserve. Next is very important energy resources, that is oil, which is a primary energy resources, and total automotive industry is run by this oil only, by whether it is petrol or diesel or by aviation fuels also included. And in some cases, this fuel oil also used to generate electricity in a captive power plant. The global proven oil reserve was estimated to be 1147 billion barrels by the end of 2003. Saudi Arabia has the largest share of the reserve with almost 23% of oil. It is to be noted that one barrel of oil approximately 160 liters. Gas, which is another primary energy sources, and its reserves are the proven global gas reserve was estimated to be 176 trillion cubic meter by the end of 2003. The Russian Federation has the largest share of the reserve with almost 27%. So these are all according to 2003 status data. The more and more coal, oil and gas field is discovered, this proven reserve and is increases. But these are all the primary energy resources, and these are also non-renewable type. It is very too easy to extract in today's modern technology. Very well adapted our systems are there to utilize this type of energy, but this causes many problems, mainly environmental problem. So it is estimated that world oil and gas reserves are estimated at just 45 years and 65 years respectively. Coal is likely to last a little over 200 years. These are the global primary energy consumption. So according to this, we can see the oil is the major chunk in the world that we are using. Next, followed by coal, natural gas, nuclear energy, and hydroelectric energy as shown. Now, in this figure, it is shown that in subcontinent wise, the coal and lignite resources, which is measured in billion tons. So in North America and Asia and Australia Pacific region, the coals are very highly deposited, including Russian Federation and Europe. Whereas the European Union and the Africa have a large chunk of coal reserve, but in Latin America, there are only 5.6% of the coal reserve till now. So this part, that is world oil reserves, that is measured in billion of barrels. In North America, that is 76.6 billion barrels, it is estimated to be reserve. And in Latin America also, that is 86.2. But the major chunk of oil, that is total oil reserve 65%, is found in Saudi Peninsula, that is in West Asia. And in Asia, in Eurasia and the European Union, etc. also, to some extent, the oil are reserved. The global primary energy consumption at the end of 2003 was equivalent to 9741 million tons of oil equivalent. The primary energy consumed for few of the developed and developing countries are shown in the next page, next slide. It is seen that India's absolute primary energy consumption is only 1/29 of the world and 1/7 of USA and 1/1.6 times of Japan, but 1.1, 1.3 and 1.5 times of Canada, France and UK respectively. Although in our country, that is nearly total 130 million people are there. Now come to the Indian energy scenario. That is, in India, coal dominates the maximum energy. It contributes nearly 55% of total primary energy production. Over the years, there has been a marked increase in the share of the natural gas in primary energy production, and it is estimated to be 13% according to the 1999 data. There has been a decline in the share of oil in primary energy production, and it is now nearly 17% during the same period. Energy supply, first of all, we'll discuss about that coal supply. India has huge coal reserve, at least 84,396 million tons of proven recoverable reserve, estimated at end of 2003. This amount is almost 8.6% of the world reserve, and it may last for about 230 years at the current reserve to production ratio. In contrast, the world proven coal reserves are expected to be last for nearly 192 years at the current reserve to production ratio. So in this context, we need to define what is reserve production ratio. It is the reserves remaining at the end of the year are divided by the production in the last year. The result is the length of time that the remaining reserve would last if production were to continue at that level. India is the fourth largest producer of oil, coal and lignite in the world. Coal production is concentrated in the states of Andhra Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Orissa, Jharkhand and West Bengal. Next is oil supply. Oil accounts for about 36% of India's total energy consumption. India today is the one of the top 10 oil producing nation in the world and will soon overtake Korea as the third largest consumer of the oil in Asia after China and Japan. The country's annual crude oil production is peaked at about 32 million tons as against the current peak demand of about 110 million tons. In the current scenario, India's oil consumption by the end of 2020 is expected to be 180 million tons, of which domestic production will be nearly 35 to 40 million ton. India will have to pay an oil bill of roughly $80 billion, assuming a weighted average price of $50 per barrel of crude. It is estimated in 2003 and 4 against total export of $64 billion, oil imports accumulated for $21 billion. India's import 70% of its crudes needs mainly from Gulf nation. The majority of India's roughly 5.4 billion barrel in oil reserves are located in Bombay High, Upper Assam, Krishna Godavari region. In terms of sector-wise petroleum product consumption, transport account for 42%, followed by domestic and industry with 24% and 24% respectively. India spent more than 110,000 crore on oil imports at the end of 2004. Natural gas supply. Natural gas accounts for about 8.9% of energy consumption in the country. The current demand for natural gas is about 96 million cubic meters per day as against available of 66 million cubic meter per day. By 2007, the demand is expected to be 200 million cubic meter per day. Natural gas reserves are estimated at 660 billion cubic meter. Electrical energy supply. The all India installed capacity of electric power generation stations under utilities was, that is, 112,581 megawatt as on May 2004. So in this regard, installed capacity as on March 31st, 2020 is 370.106 gigawatt, out of which coal is nearly 56.4%, that is 205,134.5 megawatt. Large hydropower plant consists nearly 12.3%. Small hydro plant consists 1.3%. Wind power 10.2%. Solar power 9.4%. Biomass 2.7%. Nuclear energy 1.8%. And gas energy, that is natural gas, is about 6.7%. In nuclear power supply, it is found that only 1.8% as on March 21st, 2020 data. India has 5 nuclear reactor stations producing electricity. The more nuclear reactor has also been approved for the construction. Energy needs for growing economy. Economic growth is desirable for developing countries, and energy is essential for economic growth. However, the relationship between the economic growth and increased energy demand is not always a straightforward linear one. For example, under present condition, 6% increase in India's gross domestic product would impose an increased demand of 9% of its energy sector. In this context, the ratio of energy demand to GDP is a useful indicator. A high ratio reflects energy dependence and a strong influence of energy on GDP growth. The developed countries, by focusing the energy efficiency and lower energy intensive route, maintain their energy to GDP ratio at value of less than 1. The ratio for these developing countries are much higher. In India, the per capita energy consumption is too low as compared to developed countries. It is just only 4% of USA and 20% of the world average. The per capita consumption is likely to grow in India with growth in economy and thus increasing the energy demand. Energy intensity. Energy intensity is energy consumption per unit of GDP. Energy intensity indicates the development stages of the country. India's energy intensity is 3.7 times of Japan, 1.55 times of USA, and 1.47 times of Asia, and 1.5 times of world average. Energy and environment. The uses of energy resources in industry leads to environmental damage by polluting the atmosphere. Few of examples of air pollution are sulfur dioxide, nitrous oxide, and carbon monoxide. Emissions from boiler and furnace, chlorofluorocarbon emissions from refrigerant use are the major source of this pollutant. In chemical and fertilizer industries, toxic gases are released. Cement plants and power plants spew out particulate matter. Typical inputs, outputs, and emission for a typical industrial process are to be estimated. Air pollution is a major concern in today's world, in India also. A variety of air pollutants have known or suspected harmful effects on human health and environment. These are air pollutants that are basically the products of conversion from fossil fuel use. Air pollutants from these sources may not only create problem near to the sources, but also can cause problem far away. Air pollution can travel long distance, chemically react in the atmosphere to produce secondary pollutant such as acid rain or ozone. The examples of some air pollutant is, that is, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxide, particulate matters, and carbon monoxide, etc. Evolutionary trends in pollution problem. In both developed and rapidly industrializing countries, the major historic air pollution problem has typically been high level of smoke and sulfur dioxide arising from conversion of sulfur containing fossil fuel such as coal for domestic and industrial purposes. Smokes resulting from the combined effect of black smoke, sulfate, acid arsenal, and fog have been seen in European cities until few decades ago and still occurs in many cities in developing world. In developed countries, this problem has significantly reduced over recent decades as a result of changing fuel use pattern. The increasing use of cleaner fuel such as natural gas and the implementation of effective smoke and emission control policies. In both developed and developing countries, the major threat to clean air is now posed by traffic emission. Petrol and diesel energy that is used in motor vehicle emits a wide variety of pollutants, particularly carbon monoxide, oxides of nitrogen, volatile organic compound, which have an increasing impact of urban air quality. In addition, photochemical reaction resulting from the action of sunlight of nitrogen dioxide and volatile organic compound from vehicle leads to the formation of ozone, a second long-range pollutant, which impact in rural areas often far more from the original emission sites. Acid rains is another long-range pollutant influenced by vehicles' NOx emissions. Industrial and domestic pollution sources, together with their impact on air quality, tends to steady state or improving over time. However, traffic pollution problems are worsening worldwide. The problem may be particularly severe in developing countries, which dramatically increasing vehicle pollution, infrastructural limitations, poor engine emission control technology, and limited provisions for maintenance or vehicle regulation. The principal pollutant produced by industry, domestic, and traffic sources are sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, carbon monoxide, ground level ozone, hydrocarbons, heavy metals, and lead. So, in brief, sulfur dioxide is a corrosive acid gas which combines with water vapor in the atmosphere to produce acid rain. Both wet and dry depositions have been implicated in the damage and destruction of vegetation and the degradation of soils, building materials, and water courses. Sulfur dioxide in ambient air is also associated with asthma and chronic bronchitis. The principal source of this gas is power stations and industry burning fossil fuels which contain sulfurs. Nitrogen oxides are formed during high temperature combustion process from the oxidation of nitrogen in the air or fuel. The principal sources of nitrogen oxides, nitric oxides, and nitrogen dioxide, collectively known as NOx, is road traffic. These NOx concentrations are greatly varies in urban areas where traffic is heaviest. Other important sources are power station and industrial processes. Nitrogen oxides are released into the atmosphere mainly in the form of nitrogen oxides, which then readily oxide to nitrogen dioxide by reacting with ozone. Elevated level of NOx occurs in urban environment under stable meteorological conditions when air mass is unable to displace. Nitrogen dioxide has a variety of environmental and health impact. It irritates the respiratory system and may worsen asthma and increase susceptibility to infections. In the presence of sunlight, it reacts with hydrocarbons to produce photochemical pollutants such as ozone. Nitrogen oxides combine with water vapor to form nitric acids. This nitric acid is the turn removed from the atmosphere by direct depositions to the ground, or transferred to aqueous droplet, thereby contributing to acid depositions. The acidifications of water bodies and soil due to sulfur dioxide and NOx are greatly impacting agriculture, forestry and fishery, and are result of redeposition of acidifying compound resulting particularly from the oxidation of primary SO2 and NO2 emissions from fossil fuel combustion. Depositions may be either wet or dry process, and acid deposition studies often need to examine both of these acidification routes. Airborne particulates matter varies widely in its physical and chemical compositions, source and particular size. That particulate matters 10, that is which are less than 10 micron size area, major current concern as they are small enough to penetrate deep into the lungs and so potentially pose significant health risk. In addition, they may carry surface absorbed cardiologist compound into the lungs. Larger particles, meanwhile, are not readily inhaled and are removed relatively efficiently from the air by settling process. A major source of fine particulate particles are combustion process, in particular diesel combustion, where transport of hot exhaust vapor into a cooler exhaust pipes can lead to spontaneous nucleation of carbon particles before emissions. Second, particles are typically formed when low volatility products are generated in the atmosphere. For example, the oxidation of sulfur oxides and to sulfuric acids. The atmospheric lifetime of particulate matter is strongly related to particle size, but may be as long as 10 days for particles for about 1 millimeter in diameter. The major health concern about less than 10 micrometer particles increased very rapidly over recent years. Increasingly, attention has been turning towards the monitoring of smaller particles, particulates matter of 2.5, which is capable of penetrating deepest into the lungs or to be even smaller size fraction of total particulates number. Carbon monoxide is also a major pollutant which emits into the atmosphere as a result of combustion process and from oxidation of hydrocarbon and other organic compounds. In urban areas, carbon monoxide is produced almost entirely from road traffic emissions. Carbon monoxide at levels found in ambient air and may reduce the oxygen carrying capacity in the plants. It survives in the atmosphere for a period of approximately 1 month and finally get oxidized to carbon dioxide. Ground level ozones, unlike other primary pollutant mentioned earlier, it is not emitted directly into the atmosphere but is a secondary pollutant produced by reaction between nitrogen dioxide, hydrocarbons and sunlight. Ozone can irritate the eyes and air passage, causing breathing difficulties and may increase susceptibility to infection. It is highly reactive chemical capable of attacking surfaces, fabrics, rubber materials. Ozone is also toxic to some crops, vegetation, and trees. Whereas nitrogen dioxide particularly participates in a formation of ozone, nitrogen oxide destroys ozone to form oxygen and nitrogen dioxide. For this reason, ozone levels are not as high as in urban area and rural area, as the nitrogen oxides and hydrocarbons are transported out of urban area. The ozone destroying the nitrogen oxide to nitrogen dioxide, which participates in ozone formation. Next is hydrocarbon. There are two main groups of hydrocarbons of concern: volatile organic compound and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbon. Volatile organic compounds are released in vehicles' exhaust gases either as unburned fuel or as combustible products, and are also emitted by the evaporation of solvents and motor fuels. Next is heavy metals and leads. Particulate metals in air results from activities such as fossil fuel combustion, metal processing industries, and waste incinerators. There are currently no emission standard for metal and other than lead. Lead is cumulative poisons to the central nervous system. It is widely used in non-ferrous metal and has a large number of industrial applications. A tetraethyl lead, it has been used for many years as an additive in petrol, which increasing the use of unleaded petrol. However, emissions and concentrations in air have reduced steadily in recent years. Next is energy security. The basic aim of energy security for a nation is to reduce its dependency on the imported energy source for its economic growth. India will continue to experience as an energy supply shortfall throughout the forecast period. The gap has widened since 1985, when the country became a net importer of coal. Some of the strategies that can be used to meet the future challenges for the energy security of our nation, that includes building stockpiles, diversification of energy supply sources, increased capacity of fuel switching, demand restraints, development of renewable energy sources, energy efficiency, and sustainable developments. So with this, we are likely to conclude this session. These are the references. Thank you for joining the session.